I hope it's better.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of WCMC. What is WCMC? WCMC just means Woke Centrist Media Club. That's all that means. So we're going to talk about the last 4 episodes of the OCD project. I know this is something we started a while ago and never got back into. It's just then a lot of crazy fantasy shows started airing, and we got really busy, and we had to put off this for quite a while. So we're going to go ahead and talk about those last 4 episodes, or the second half of the show, starring some of our favorite nutcases. But starting with episode 5. So in episode 5, Dr. Tolan tries to take the temperature of how effective his treatments are. And he busts out this chart that shows, looks like everybody's improving except for one person. And who would that one person be, Andrew?
Is that Kevin?
Right. So Kevin is the only one that is like getting worse. Everybody else is improving. Kevin is getting worse. So we get to see all their test scores, and we do see that if we're looking at severity, Kristen's severity is pretty high. Like when she started, she definitely has the highest severity of OCD, but we do see that she's doing better. And we can see that, she does cry and fuss, but we do see she's only taken like one 5-minute shower, even though she's crying about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Kevin has a moment here. He seems to be very jealous of everyone else's scores. He says, "Look, it looks like I've gotten worse. What is this suggesting?" That's what he kind of says. And he starts getting really upset. And out of all the people, Cody and Irene have the lowest scores. So they're actually pretty low on this chart. So we do get the doctor, and he basically tells Kevin, "Hey, we need to find a different treatment approach for you, because obviously what we're doing in this house isn't working." So even then, Kevin is still along for the ride here, at least for this episode. And they're going to do an exposure. And this exposure is an overnight exposure. So they're going on an excursion to a dilapidated, abandoned hospital. Um, According to Dr. Tolan, he says this hospital closed because the death rate was too high. I did a little bit of investigation. It is a little true, but then it reopened. Um, and then it was open for a while, but they ran out of funds and it closed. It got shut down again. So one of the comments made, at least, about this hospital is he says it's one of the creepiest places on the planet. I know I wouldn't want to stay a night in this place. It's ridiculously, weird, because I guess crazy people used to stay there, and there's just a bunch of weird stuff scrawled all over the walls.
Yeah,
But they do make a
really give
uh,
it really give it a creepy atmosphere on the show.
yeah, so they do have a home base, and it's a central room with a few cots in it where everyone is going to sleep for the night. And interesting enough, out of all the people there, Kristen is like the least phased, which is pretty interesting. Um, and she says she's not that like it doesn't affect her that much because she doesn't live there. That was like one of her justifications. She said she's more concerned of filth and things like that in her own living space than, outside. So she wasn't that concerned as much as the others about having to stay the night.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because if it's not your living space, then it wouldn't it wouldn't bother you as much if it's really messy and disgusting.
Yeah, because she said she knows when she gets home she's going to be able to like clean herself. So yeah, she wasn't that phased by this particular exposure. The one person who was greatly affected was Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry is the hefty man who is afraid that he'll turn into a quote psycho killer.
Yeah, and he was getting crazy vibes like that from the hospital, right?
Yeah, they show like a clip of him. It looks like he has like this, I don't know, aggressive streak where we see him breaking a window and he's just like slamming things against the wall. I don't know if he genuinely like did this or if like the producers of the show told him to do it. If you never know with these reality shows. But when asked to comment about this exposure, the first thing he says is basically that the exposure is pissing him off.
Right.
Um, and it's pissing him off because he knows it's what he needs to do.
And it's making him feel like he's getting more worried about being violent towards someone, right?
Yeah, and I'm turning into a psycho killer. Because he's like in the right environment, I guess. If because there are a bunch of psychos, I guess, at this place at one time or another. Oh, I see that you changed your background into a living room.
Did I? I was
Yeah,
experimenting with that and then I thought I turned it off. It must be a delay.
unless that's a static picture or something.
Oh, maybe I think my picture I'm looking at the streaming screen right now. I think maybe my picture froze.
Yeah, I think that's probably what happened. All right, so Dr. Tolan takes them out for some individual exposures. The first in line is Cody, and I believe the first thing he says in quotes here is "Oh frick."
Right.
He's taken to an insane asylum room, and Tolan's goal here is to make Cody learn that his environment won't make him turn into somebody else. Um, it's a good, I guess, I'm not exactly sure if that's a correct statement, as I'm pretty sure environmental pressures, if they're hard enough, can change a person. I don't know, but I do think that his goal here is noble.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Cody expresses that he's at level 99, which is near the highest. Um, he comments that he doesn't want to end up like a psycho.
Right.
And he had been going down, and then he sees like a picture of a fetus or something on the wall, and it goes back up. So he went down to 80 and it went back up to 95 because of the disturbing baby picture on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And Tolan says, well, you have to pretend that you drew that on the wall. Eventually, Cody does adapt, and his level goes down to 35. And then Cody and Dr. Tolan have a very touching moment. And Cody says, quote, "I couldn't do this without you." And then Dr. Tolan tells him, "You're the one doing all the work."
Mm-hmm.
And then they hug it out.
Yeah, he's a great therapist. He's good at just encouraging them to do the things that are going to challenge them the most, especially in terms of exposure therapy, right?
Yeah. He's really stern. I like that about him. And he doesn't let while he is stern, he's very how you say it, like he's very supportive when they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So things are looking good for Cody here. Next exposure is Tracy. We know that Tracy doesn't like to be surrounded by death. And she says that she's afraid that she may breathe in cancer and AIDS. So you can basically guess where they're going to go with Tracy.
Cancer ward.
Right, they take her to the cancer ward. Tracy claims that she could smell the death and disease and cancer and AIDS. And then she freaks out once she sees the autopsy table. And when he pulls it out, there's a picture of her son on the table.
Right. Because she's afraid that she'll kill him by infecting him with cancer with her mind or something, right?
Well, I know like part of her deal is if she doesn't perform her rituals, then she believes that her rituals stop her son from getting sick or getting cancer or getting AIDS. So Tolan, he basically tells her that she needs to stop treating that picture as her actual son. He puts the picture on a cadaver tray, so it's one of those drawers they have where they keep the bodies. And he takes stock of her level, and at this point, she's down to level 20, and she mentions to the doctor that she just feels really silly.
Yeah.
All right, so now we cut back to Jerry, who apparently hasn't spoken in 2 hours. We can see Kristen is trying to console him, but he is unresponsive. Dr. Moore also tries to talk to him, and there's no response. He's completely gone nonverbal at this point. After a little poking and prodding, they're able to get Jerry to respond, and his response is that he just doesn't know what's going on and he just wants to be alone. He is not taking it very well.
No.
So we go over to Irini, and he takes Irini on a tour, and he brings her over to a section where there's some red spots on the floor. And he's like, "What's this?" And then she gets immediately triggered because she has like her one of her triggers is blood.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes stock of her level, and she's at 100. So we have one of the routines that Tolan puts her through on a regular basis. Do you know which one this is?
No, I don't remember.
He makes her do the OCD Macarena.
Oh, right.
With the blood spot on the floor.
Right, right. Rub it all over her hair and her face and her hands, right?
Right. So she does that. Her level drops to an 85. Tolan comments that she is winning the battle. Interesting enough, she says she would rather eat toilet scones than touch that like dried up blood or whatever it is on the floor. I definitely would not rather eat toilet scones.
Yeah,
I
I'd
don't
rather
know.
touch dried up blood too.
Yeah, her fear must be pretty hardcore. She'd rather eat like toilet scones. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So we get to Kevin. Kevin is very reluctant to do the exposure, but Tolan takes Kevin to the crazy room that Cody had been before, and Tolan instructs Kevin that he needs to place a hex that would send him to hell. And of course, Kevin is like arguing about it.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, he's able to do like a mantra where he calls evil spirits and sends him and his family to hell forever. Initially, he's at a level 80. He repeats the hex for a while, and he does get dropped down to 60 or 50.
That's a sort of OCD thing that I definitely don't have trouble with. I hope God strikes down me and my family all right now. I hope we all go and suffer fiery deaths in hell for eternal damnation.
You don't have that problem, right?
No.
He definitely does. So Kevin does have a hard time understanding emotions, and then one of the things we find out is that Kevin said a prayer to undo the hex.
Right. So he went back on what he was supposed to do.
So, Tolan mentions that he is ruining the exposure, and that he tries to justify, well, at least Kevin tries to justify that, this is my eternal damnation you're talking about. And then Dr. Tolan says, well, you're already pretty much in hell. So what are you sacrificing here?
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Tolan says in an aside that Kevin just doesn't get it. So he does freak out. But I think he eventually undoes his prayer.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we get back to Jerry. We find out that he did not sleep. And then Tolan asks him if he wants to retreat or face some fears. And he agrees to do that and face his fears. So Tolan asks Jerry to kill Irini when she comes out of the bathroom. Which is, it seems like his are some of the easiest, if you ask me. His exposures seem like really easy compared to everybody else's. It's not like he's gonna like go out and kill these people. I don't know. What do you think? Uh-oh.
I forgot that I was muted. Yeah, I mean, I get that from our perspective, but from his perspective, it probably seems equally terrifying because he literally has a fear of that actually happening.
Yeah, he thinks that he's going to kill somebody. I can get that because, they have him hold a knife and hold it to people's throats and whatnot. But anyway,
yeah,
he does resist the urge to kill Irini. And Jerry and Narini hug it out.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin envies Jerry's recovery. He's like really jealous about it. Tolan then says that he's worried about Kevin, and he consults Moore about it, Dr. Moore. And then this is where we get the fated discussion, where Tolan has a one-on-one conversation with Kevin and tells Kevin that this is not the right program for him. And that's how this episode ends, with Kevin getting the boot.
Yeah, that was surprising. I wasn't expecting that, but I think if I remember correctly, when we talked about this last time, you had said that there's one. I think you had told me maybe that there's one person who's going to get kicked off the show, and I had no idea who it was going to be at first. But
You probably thought it was going to be Kristen, huh?
I think I did think that at first, and then close to the end of this episode, I was starting to think, oh, I think it's going to be Kevin.
Right. So yeah, Kevin gets the boot. And I know Kevin is like really pissed off about it. But we saw the results were just not working for the guy anyway. So it's not that they kicked him off because he wasn't complying or what. It was just like these exposures were not working on Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
So we do get a blooper scene at the end of this episode, and the blooper scene shows the cast trying to throw Kevin into the swimming pool.
Right.
So let's get to the next episode, episode 6. So episode 6. They start off talking about Kevin. So Tolan gets into more detail about what's going on. He basically says that the treatment isn't working and that Tolan is going to find Kevin a new doctor. So we see Kevin doing his goodbyes, and he gets the group together and lets them know that he's leaving. And I put in quotes S in the boat, so I'm not even sure what that means.
I don't know either.
I think it has something to do. It's probably something that Kevin said.
Okay.
Maybe he's talking about shit. I don't know. I think he's like the shit in the boat. I don't know. I didn't write too many details about that. So Tolan then explains to the group about Kevin's departure. He lets them know that he's sad that he couldn't help Kevin. But he's now announcing that there's going to be a phase 2 to their exposure treatment. Everything's going to get bigger and better.
Yep. Those challenges weren't challenging enough.
No, it's also a continual escalation. So we start with Jerry. Immediately, always with Jerry. The kitchen knife gets busted out, and Jerry is asked to put the knife to Tolan's throat. And Jerry's at a level 20. He just says, "It's not me." And that's that.
Very good.
Kristen has some trouble here. The trouble is because everyone has to touch her face. And when Tracy touches her face, she starts crying. But Tolan raises the ante and just like puts his hands on her face and leaves them there for a while.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, because she's creeped out by men in particular touching her because she associates men with being gross, right?
Right. So you have the doctor there, and his hands are just sitting on her face. Eventually, she does calm down. Initially, she did have a level 100 when Tracy touched her face. And by the end of this exposure, she got down to about a 35.
Right.
This next exposure I thought was really good and interesting. And this is an exposure for Arini. Dr. Tolan invites a gay man with AIDS or HIV to the group to have a conversation with everybody.
Right.
And his name is Wade. Wade tells Arini that he understands her fear. And Wade is like really calm. He has like a very calm demeanor. He's a pretty cool cat. At the end of it, surprisingly, Arini asks Wade for a hug, and one is given. So we get another exposure with Kristen. I love this one. There's so many bad ones. Kristen, I think, has some of the worst ones in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
So this one is pretty funny. Well, I shouldn't say funny. I hope she has eventually got past her OCD and she can look back on this stuff and kind of laugh at it. But in this, she goes to a gas station and then she's asked to do the OCD Macarena with the gas pump. I know initially she starts at 80.
Rub gas on her, right?
She has to rub the pump on her body.
Right.
And then Tolan, because Tolan's a complete maniac, he kisses the pump and Kristen exclaims, "Oh no!" And Tolan kisses it again. And Tolan wants her to kiss the pump, but they make a compromise. She has to kiss her hand that touched the pump. Eventually, they're able to laugh about it. I think Tolan says something like, "Did you hear a little kissy?" And then Kristen starts chuckling. But then she gets elevated again. She touches the pump on her nose and she starts crying. But then she musters strength and then actually kisses the pump.
Yep. Big deal for her.
Yeah, definitely. There's going to be worse stuff for her in the coming episodes. So day 2, we got a new addition to the medical staff. Dr. Scott Hannon, I think is his name. So they're going to do another exposure with Cody and Jerry specifically. And I think Tolan asked, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And Cody's like, "Well, let's go to jail." So they take both of them to jail, like a real jail. And they do some jail exposures. Arini, her exposure is going to be nighttime driving. And this is the second day, so it's an escalation here. Tracy's exposure is going to be a funeral for her son. She really struggles with that idea. And the group offers her some encouragement. I think somebody says, I think she's like, she kind of gets a little out of herself, but they try to tell her, "Hey, it's your baby's not dying." Oh no, Tracy tells them it's not your baby dying, and then the group's like, neither is yours. It's not a real funeral. Um, so now we're at the jail. So they put, I guess they book Jerry and Cody, put them in the back of a police car and do all that type of stuff. I think they do take mug shots. And I put in my note that Jerry has an amazing mugshot. I think his mugshot is like truly like the badass criminal mugshot that you would expect.
Yeah, he kind of has that look about him.
Yeah, like he could be like a white supremacist biker who fucks people up in prison.
Yeah. Maybe he just needs a different haircut and different facial hair.
So they put them in separate jail cells. Cody's actually having a pretty tough time of it. And so is Jerry. Jerry's at a level 80. And eventually they're in their cells, they're given dinner. But they do survive. And this exposure actually had them at pretty high level, sustained high levels for a while. So we cut to Kristen, and here's one of my favorite exposures here. I think everybody's chilling like in the back in the jacuzzi, and Kristen hasn't entered the jacuzzi yet. But Tolan says, "Hey, you will be allowed in the jacuzzi if he's allowed to put a half cup of pee in it."
That's why you called this episode the Peecuzzi.
Yeah, I called this episode the Peecuzzi. Yeah, she gets to pick whose pee it is, I believe. And then they do some more bargaining. And it gets bargained down to a quarter cup. But then Tolan chooses whose pee it is. So we never get explicitly told whose pee it is. But Dr. Moore is the one who pours the pee in the hot tub. So my guess is it's her pee. What do you think?
Like her own pee?
I think it's hers because she's the one that pours it in the hot tub.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really think about whose pee it was.
I think it was hers because I wouldn't think that she would pour someone else's pee. Like, why would she get someone else's pee in a cup and then pour it?
Yeah, maybe it would be easier on Kristen if it was her own pee.
But yeah, I believe it was Moore's pee. That's just speculation. Dr. Tolan thanks Dr. Moore for the pee, and she responds with, "You're welcome."
I would say that to her too.
So Cody, Jerry, Kristen, and Arini are in the Peecuzzi. Dr. Moore also dips her feet in the Peecuzzi, so she is also tainted. And Kristen actually handles the Peecuzzi pretty well. You know, I was quite surprised. Like the pee didn't affect her too much. She wasn't really freaking out. So that was interesting. It seems like she's doing a lot better.
Yeah.
So next time we have Arini and her exposure, which is driving at night alone. So she's not equipped with a camera crew for this. I think they just have cameras mounted in the car. And she does, kind of fall back into some old habits by checking, stop signs too many times and things like that. Eventually, she does get to a level where it's manageable when she gets to level 55. However, she does say that she feels dizzy while driving. And I think someone tried to call her and she accidentally hung up, and she ends up calling back. And at that time, she's told to pretend to run over pedestrians with Tolan to earn points. And at that point, she's back up to level 60, which isn't that far from her previous level.
What was her previous level?
55. So it just went up 5 points.
Okay.
All right. Next day. Some of the patients have said that they have lived with OCD so long that they don't even know how to live without. And today is Tracy's day, so upon arriving at the mortuary, she's immediately starts weeping. She gets there, she's freaking out, and she's asked to pick a casket for her son. She apologizes to the funeral director for having to participate in her delusion, which is interesting. Tolan then ups the ante.
That's another thing that, just to go back to that, what you said there, that I think is interesting about the series, that people with OCD are very self-aware of how irrational our obsessions are.
Yeah, I believe it seems like they're all self-aware, except Kevin. He doesn't seem to be that self-aware about it.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe that's probably why the treatment didn't work for him. But everybody else is very self-aware of how the behavior is just irrational. They know their behavior is irrational. And that's why it didn't work for Kevin, because he always tried to rationalize his behavior. And he never really got to the point where he thought his own thinking was irrational. So Tolan ups the ante, and they have a mock funeral set up. She immediately is at level 100. She starts complaining that there isn't enough flowers for her son's funeral, at this mock funeral. Eventually, she does drop down to level 80. Tolan goes up to pay respects to Sean's picture, which is Tracy's son. And then we get to see a eulogy that she had written. And she blames her rituals on her son's death. And I think her reading out how ridiculous that sounds just makes her realize that, yeah, this is just irrational thought that is just not at all real. She then finally gets herself down to level 40. And I think Tolan tells her, thanks for facing your fear. And she did. At the end of this episode, we get a blooper reel. And it's Tolan not being able to find some paper. And he says that he's at a level 40 because he couldn't find this paper. So, Episode 7, home visit. So in this episode, all the family members come and they visit the compound. And they also revisit the chart to see how everyone's progressing. Everyone's progressing well. Kristen is progressing very well. And we see with Cody, he's having a slight relapse. Cody, however, is still optimistic. So now they say it's time to go for broke. So they're talking about doing more exposures. And for Kristen's, it's for her task is to spread contamination in her own home. Tracy's task is to visit the grave site of her fiance. Cody, he has to meet with Dr. Hannon and Liz. I'm not sure what they're doing. Irini has to go to her own home to do some contamination. She doesn't like the idea of having to go to her own home, but Cody does offer her some support. She also has to drive through her own neighborhood. And when she does, she sees some people with strollers, and she says, "Strollers, great." She's at a level 65 at that time.
Yeah, and it's
so part of her. Good.
It's interesting that the doctor is having them address their past trauma that has a lot to do with their obsessions.
All right. So in her home, she is tasked with contaminating her home with blood. So he gets out, Dr. Tolan gets out some blood vials. I have no idea where this blood came from, but he has some and he's brought it himself.
Hopefully it's not the blood from that guy with AIDS.
Yeah, Irini winces when he opens up the vial. And then Irini touches the blood and does the old OCD Macarena. And during the Macarena, she has a lot of trouble touching her mouth with the blood. Eventually, she's able to start contaminating her home on her own. So we have another thing. I guess they go back to her apartment building, and Dr. Tolan finds a dumpster. And he hops inside the dumpster. And I think we all know what he wants Irini to do. And she says, "I didn't sign up for that." Her level goes up to 90. While she's in the dumpster, she does the Macarena and it drops down to 60. And eventually, when they get back into the car, it's at a 45.
Yeah, it seems like the OCD Macarena helps.
Yeah, it seems to consistently work in dropping their levels. So for Cody, he has an interesting exposure. For Cody, they have a makeup artist work on his face. After Cody first sees what they've done, he's at a level 100. Thinks his face looks gross. And eventually there is a drop to 90. Cody is then asked to talk to the group. And when Kristen saw his face, she freaked out. And then Cody tells Kristen, "Would you kiss me?" So Cody does kind of like a dual exposure. So he sits next to Kristen. So he's doing exposure on her while he's doing exposure on himself.
Yep.
His exposure drops down. His level drops down to 50.
Yep.
All right. So next scene, we're with Tracy, and she's at her fiance's grave. One of the things that comes up in this session is that Tracy had not properly grieved her dead fiance. At least that's what comes out. We find out that she never really visited his grave, and she didn't grieve him in a normal fashion. She then partakes in the grieving process, but then she says she fears going home. But she's also excited to be able to see her family again. Trying to figure out these notes that I have here. Oh, yeah. So she gets an exposure, as I guess one of her rituals was, because she's at her own home at this point, and she's walking around her home and she's trying not to indulge herself with her ritual. And one of the things that she always does is to like mess with the sink handle. So she's asked to do it just once. She's asked to turn off the lights once and to do everything once, and she's able to do it. So she is progressing quite well here. And her family is there, and they're also amazed at the progress that's been made.
Yeah, she can turn off the tap only once and turn off the lights only once.
Mm-hmm. So now we have another exposure here. They're going into Kristen's home. Kristen has a lot of triggers. So one of the things that Tolan does is he hands Kristen a bottle of pee. and then in parentheses they wrote, "Whose is it?" But that's never expressed. We don't know whose pee it is.
Mystery of this mysterious pee.
Yeah, so one of the side tasks that Jerry is actually accompanying this exposure, and Jerry is tasked with contaminating her home. So he's just like laying on couches and touching stuff, and she is not able to concentrate on the conversation that Tolan is trying to have with her. The only thing she's focusing on is like what Jerry's doing in her house. So they go in the room, they open the bottle of pee, and they do the Macarena with the pee. And I thought this was fascinating because this would be gross for me, like just seeing what she's doing.
I'd find it gross too.
Like she's like putting her fingers in a bottle of pee, some unknown person's pee. She's like rubbing it on her hands, patting her face and head with it. And it's so she also I think had to touch her mouth with it.
Yeah, gross.
She has an extremely difficult time with this exposure. And one of Dr. Tolan's comments was, "Your attitude is bullshit."
Yep.
So she starts doing that whole like whiny thing, or she
princess
wants to
routine,
quit.
as he calls it, I think, right? Yeah.
Yeah. He says, and then she says, "This is bullshit." And he says, "If it's bullshit, then fire me." So Jerry makes himself at home and he flops on the bed. And he makes her promise that she won't throw out her things, the things that Jerry has touched.
Right.
So Jerry, it's time for his exposure in his home. One of the things we find out that Jerry doesn't throw things away. So he has like a hoarding tendency also.
Yeah, I didn't know that was an OCD tendency too. That's why one of the reasons why I think my dad might have undiagnosed OCD because he's really a massive hoarder about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we see at his home that he had been saving garbage. So part of his exposure is throwing some of these things away. I don't know where I wrote this. Oh yeah, he has another fear too, that we find out about. He has a fear of flying, apparently.
Oh,
So going
right.
on a
Yeah.
plane.
He's never flown before, right?
Yeah, he's never flown. So they're going to do a flying exposure.
Yeah.
Um, so one of the things that Jerry doesn't like about flying is that the plane doesn't take off as soon as he gets on. Like there's this waiting period, and that really causes him anxiety.
Usually isn't very long, but I can see how it would feel like a long time.
Yeah, so when his levels is assessed when he's on the plane, he says his level is 110. Then he sucks it up a bit and he says that his level is 90. So they're flying and everything, but his level dropped slightly, but it did drop. So I think back at the house, Jerry makes it known because they returned from this exposure. And I guess they're like kind of talking about how it went. And Jerry says to the other housemates that he doubts Kristen will get better. I guess that's based on what he saw, like in that exposure.
Yeah.
Kristen actually overheard that, and she starts distancing herself from him.
Yeah. It's
So
unfortunate.
yeah, so what happens is Tolan gets into a one-on-one with Kristen, and he suggests that he would like her to re-enter the program. Um, and at this point, she refuses. Um, and I wrote a note Cody calls mom for exposure. I'm not really sure what
Uh,
that. Anyway,
I don't remember what exposure that was.
me neither. I think calling. Oh, because of his face.
Oh, right, right.
Calls his mom with the face. That's part of
Okay.
the exposure. Okay. So we got episode 8. This is the last episode. Um, in this episode, we see Kristen calling her mom, who offers her some encouragement. So at this point, it's day 21 in the program. Tolan tells everyone that he's really happy to see progress, but he has said that he's going to have to say goodbye. But before he does, is one last exposure for everybody. Iranian's exposure is more blood related stuff.
Right.
Um, he busts out a syringe full of blood and he wants to squirt that blood on Irani's hand. Obviously, we could see that she still needs some work on that. It's gross, but I would be disgusted by it. But if
Me too.
these are doctors, so I'm pretty sure they're not squirting like HIV blood on me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yeah, or maybe it's not even blood, it might even be fake blood.
Yeah, that could be the case.
Or blood from an animal, who knows?
Hmm.
Um so Cody, as his final exposure, has to shave his head and make himself uneven. I think he only shaves like half his head, or he just shaves like random chunks out of
Yeah.
his head. And then I wrote in quotes someone saying that was really brave.
Mm-hmm.
Tracy gets a cancer cake.
Yeah.
And then I think on the cake it says, "My son is in the hospital dying of cancer."
Right.
And it has like a candle, and she blows the candle out. And then after she blows it out, everyone claps. And Kristen, hers is she has to eat contaminated cake. And she's eating it, but she's like crying. And by contaminated cake, I think it was like someone like put their hands on her piece of cake and she had to like eat it.
Yeah. So it's contaminated in your mind.
Yeah, like extremely in her mind.
Right.
Jerry feels really good about the progress that he's made. And Kristen feels that the program is difficult, but she does know that she has progressed. We saw a lot of the difficult moments, but we see like they start showing us a montage of her getting over like her fears and stuff. And there's like some really like inspiring music being played over this montage. And I put Cavo, Let It Go. I guess that's the name of the artist and the name of the song.
Oh, okay.
So she agrees finally to continue the program. So she's going to stay and continue to work on herself. But she's actually going to be working at another facility. So Tolan says that he's going to go ahead and check on her in 2 months.
That's good. He's getting her the extra help that she needs in comparison to the other patients. And yeah, that's a surprising aspect of this episode that we were talking about in comparison to the episode where Kevin leaves, because I thought that, like we were talking about, I thought that she was going to be the one that fails basically and has to get different type of treatment, but she still gets extra treatment. But by the end of the series, we see that she's gotten more progress, and that Kevin's made more progress too, actually. So that's good, of course.
Yeah, they check in with him too. So Tolan got Irene a job helping the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually one of the things I believe she had aspired to, but her OCD kept her away from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Tracy comes to realize that because of her OCD, she was an extremely overbearing and overprotective mother.
Yeah.
And she's calmed down with that. Cody, his aspiration is to go to college. Irene has a very emotional goodbye when she says goodbye to everybody. Kristen gives Tolan a goodbye hug, which is interesting because normally with her OCD, she wouldn't do anything like that.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly.
the five are all optimistic about the treatment and the results. And so now we're getting into a section where they're following up with everybody here. All right, so I'm not sure exactly how much time has passed, but they're following up with some of these patients. Well, the first one they follow up with is Cody. Cody says that he's doing great at school. We see that he has like a buzz cut now because he had to fix whatever damage he did to his hair when he was doing that exposure. Cody says it was a real success story, and he says that he is completely he has done no rituals, like he's done none of them.
Good for him, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, when
I
Tolan
know.
remarked
And,
about Cody's haircut, Cody then mocked Tolan's hair himself.
oh yeah, that's funny. I know that's especially difficult because, like, I know for myself having OCD that I can sometimes stop one habit if I want to, but not all of them.
So it's all of them in conjunction that is the difficult part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Cody, yeah, he's good now. Going over to Jerry. Jerry, we see he's working on cars. He remarks that his fears have diminished and the compulsions that he has are gone. His sister remarks that she's really proud of him, and Dr. Tolan is as well. For Arini, we get to see her volunteering at the homeless shelter. And in the clip they show, Tolan is helping at the homeless shelter as well. He's very proud of her progress because before she got treatment, there's no way she would be able to step foot in that place.
Yeah.
So for Tracy, follow up on that, we see that she put her son in martial arts. She also remarked her mom got sick and she didn't do any rituals.
Yeah, that's especially impressive for her.
Right. And then I don't know why I wrote this, but I wrote carpal tunnel syndrome. There's like those things on her wrist for like carpal tunnel syndrome.
What do you mean? What things on her wrist?
You know those wrist braces
Oh,
that
okay.
people wear for carpal tunnel?
Oh, okay. I forgot about that.
She was like wearing them. I don't know why, but she was at the time.
Okay.
Tracy's mom thanks Dr. Tolan and calls him an angel.
Yeah.
So we get a visit with Kevin. Kevin is now a painter,
Yeah.
and he noticeably seems a lot less neurotic. He's much more calm. And Tolan participates and does a painting with Kevin. He seems to be okay. Like, it just makes me wonder if he's like getting better. He still seems a bit eccentric, but he doesn't seem as like neurotic as he used to be.
Yeah, and like autism-y.
Yeah, so he seems to present himself in a more normal fashion. We
No,
see. Go
I
ahead.
was I was talking to one of our friends who we know for mixed mental arts. No, wait. Yeah. I was talking with Michael Murphy about the latest Joe Rogan podcast where he talked to Gabor Mate. And
Uh-huh.
I think he was saying that I don't remember which one it was, but he was saying that apparently OCD tends to coincide with autism often. I don't remember whether he was saying that about OCD, or I think he might have actually been saying that about ADD or ADHD, that they often that often seems to coincide with autism.
I think it might be more an ADHD thing.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, because I know my wife had some cases of kids that were autistic or were on the spectrum, and a lot of them had a lot of trouble focusing in class.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I'm not. It does maybe seem like possibly it could be tied to some autism, but if that's the case, we saw with Kevin, because I think they tried to tell him that he had Asperger's, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
the
exactly.
first 4 episodes, so there's definitely some complications. That was definitely a complication when it came to his treatment.
Yeah,
But yeah, Kevin looks a lot better. I'll say that.
yeah,
Um,
certainly.
so lastly, we follow up with Kristen. She's in treatment. She's still in treatment. Looks like she's working with another doctor, but she's looking happy and less anxious. I think in one of the clips it just showed them passing around a cup and drinking out of it. An interesting thing is like during these exposures, you see her doing it, and we don't see her like apprehensive or tearing up or anything like that. She's just like going ahead and doing these exposures. Um, but she looks to be doing well, and I think, well, I put here in the notes, Tolan would have liked Kristen would talk to her more. I'm not even sure what the fuck that means. Anyway. Anyway, at the end, I put a star, and it's like, okay, everyone is doing better. And it
Yep.
seems like they all benefited from this treatment in one way or another.
Yeah, it worked out. It worked out well for all of them, basically. Like even Kevin, like we were talking about.
Right. So if you had to do exposure therapy, what would you have to be exposed to?
I don't know. Like one thing I would have to do is change my routines and have to do things in the wrong order. That's one thing that I have trouble with. And
So it has to be like similar to what Cody has to do.
yeah, similar. Like I mean, like in my daily routine, like one
Oh, you
example,
have
like
daily routines that you stick to like a T or something?
yeah, well, mostly, but yeah, like sometimes I've had to change my routines. Like I had to, and this took a lot of work. I had to change my morning routine because I was flossing my teeth and taking a shower, but because that was part of my routine, I started having to take a shit right when I get up in the morning and almost shitting myself because I was still brushing and flossing my teeth and taking a shower first. So I had to change my routine to start taking a shit first before I brush and floss my teeth and shower.
So you wouldn't allow your shit to interrupt your routine? You would just like power through everything else
Yeah.
before you even went to take a shit?
Yeah.
Why? You just couldn't
I don't
break
know.
that routine?
Because of the because of the irrational OCD obsession with sticking to my routines.
Okay, so
And
it seems like it's like an orderly routine type of deal that you have to
yeah.
do.
Yeah, it's the routines and the repetition type of thing for me too, and like the feeling uneven sometimes. I often, even if I'm sitting on the couch reading or watching TV, I kind of move around a whole lot because I'm afraid of getting uneven or something. Like if one of my legs starts getting stiff, I'm afraid of not to a realistic amount even, but like muscle imbalances or something, even if I'm sitting or standing unevenly or something like that.
So what would your exposure have to do? Would like be similar to Cody's where you have to have a makeup artist come or
Maybe
make you
like
wear like
for
a
that sort of thing.
bodysuit where one of your arms is like grossly bigger than your other or something
Yeah,
like that?
something similar like that, or just force me to like sit still for an hour or something. And yeah, something like I don't know, trimming off chunks of my beard and my hair or something similar to like what he did too.
Hmm. Okay.
And
Interesting.
I don't have as much trouble with this as I used to. But I do sometimes have trouble with that repetition habit, like turning light switches on and off, or if not doing that, like double checking 3 times to make sure I turned off a light switch all the way, so it's not in the
All the
middle
way.
of the thing or something like that.
So the light switch being in the middle and not completely one way or the other would bother you?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I need to get you I need to upload that OCD book that, what's his name? David Sedaris wrote.
Oh yeah, yeah. You told me about that one. I think I've read 1 or 2 of his books, but not that one.
It's pretty comical.
Nice.
I think out of that book is probably the one that made me laugh out loud the most.
Oh, okay.
His books do have a effect of me being able to laugh out loud in them. It's
Good.
like he has such absurdist takes on everything. The guy's definitely strange. So you would say out of all the patients, you would be closest to Cody.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
I don't have. Yeah, I think I'm probably the closest. I don't have a fear of turning into someone if I appear too much like them or behave too much like them, like turning into a crazy person if I'm in a mental hospital or becoming homeless if I'm around homeless people. But yeah, in terms of all the other things we just mentioned, those are similar to some of his habits, like especially the feeling uneven one, and then similar to what was her name? That that other woman, the brunette woman, the one who was
Tracy?
yeah, because she has trouble repeatedly turning on and off light switches and turning taps on and off, that sort of thing.
Okay, so you do repetitious tasks like over and over?
Yeah, that's I'd say that's much less of a problem than the other things I said, like
Than the evenness.
particularly sticking to my routine. I think that's the one I have the most trouble with.
If you break the routine, you get like you have trouble doing it. Like you said, you power through and you really
Yeah.
needed to take a shit,
Yeah,
but
like
you don't because
I've almost shat myself countless times because I had so much trouble
countless
breaking my
that many
routine. Yes.
times.
Yep.
Like you couldn't even count the amount of times that you
Yeah.
almost shot yourself.
Yeah. Took me like it's because I'm on medication for my OCD that I managed to change it, but it took far too long to do that.
So were there any instances where you weren't able to hold it?
There probably was once or twice.
So did that disrupt your routine, or did you even power through that?
Well, yeah, see, that's why the obsession is irrational, because if I shit myself, it'll take me even longer overall anyway, because I gotta like change my underwear and clean my fucking soiled, disgusting underwear and that kind of stuff. So like I had to
But
beat that message
did
into
you
my head
power
to be like,
through and then clean up afterwards?
oh no, no. If I start shitting myself, I'm gonna fucking run to the bathroom regardless of what I'm doing. That's
Okay.
it doesn't go that far.
Okay, so you don't hold the routine so hard that you're rocking like a shitty soiled pair of briefs or whatever.
No, no.
Okay. I think at that point then we knew it was a real severe problem.
Yeah,
You had to rock the shitty underwear
yeah,
through your routine until it was over to clean the said shitty underwear.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. But and now are you having trouble still breaking the routines if you need to take a dump?
I don't have to. No, like I said, I don't really have trouble with that anymore because because I adapted my routine to it. But sometimes I do still have trouble if it's like if I have to shit and it's not in the proper place in my routine. Like I have to in my mind go to the bathroom now or you will shit yourself.
I didn't know that Lou Haglock was up in here.
Yeah, he said that a while ago, and I commented and said you don't like urine biscuits. And I also said you can watch the whole OCD project series on Vimeo.
Yep. So if anyone's wondering, yes, you can find all of these episodes on Vimeo. You can find just about anything on Vimeo, to be honest. I don't know how they're able to get away with so much, but yeah, you can find it on Vimeo, and I have no compunction with Vimeo because they don't spam you with random porn ads.
Porn
You're
ads?
just, like those freaking like free streaming sites that you go to, and they're like always bombarding you with porn ads.
Oh yeah, like the streaming website that we've used to watch movies and those ones. Yeah.
And like every time you try to press the play button, like some porn ad pops up out of nowhere.
Yeah, there's always some pop-up that's clearly like some fake app for some fake site or some
That's
fake pop-up.
that's what's nice about Vimeo. You're not going to get those pop-ups and porn ads.
Yeah.
So I watched old episodes of Pokemon on there, some anime stuff.
Oh, sweet.
This.
Could I watch
I
Dragon Ball Z on there, you think?
I don't know. Usually it's lesser known things.
Okay.
If it's something like as like, because I've watched Ghost in the Shell on there, like the series, which is one of my favorite anime series of all time.
I
It's
didn't even know
basically
there
like,
was a series.
oh, the series is like fucking awesome. Like I can't
Oh, I've
even
only seen the
recommend it.
movie.
I couldn't recommend it enough. The
Sweet.
series is like the smartest cyberpunk shit I've ever watched.
Sweet. There's a
It's
new
very good.
I think there are two new or at least one new Ghost in the Shell series on Netflix too. Like one of them is
Yes,
called
there's
something
two.
like yeah. Are you referring to those ones, the new ones, like the
No, I'm
show
talking about
didn't
the
exist?
old ones.
Oh,
I'm talking
okay.
about the
So
ones
there's an
that came
old
out in
one
the
in
early
addition to the
2000s.
two new ones?
Yeah, so the series
Okay.
is called Standalone Complex, and the new ones are extensions. So the Standalone Complex, because there's a couple of different Ghost in the Shell series. My favorite are the Standalone Complex, and the Standalone Complex, you have the old ones, the originals, and then these ones on Netflix are continuations of the story.
Oh, okay.
And in
Oh,
the
okay.
old and that one, they got the same voice actors, and the voice actor for the series, Motoko, is just fucking awesome. Because Motoko is just like this badass, like I don't know, she's like the epitome of badass female characters.
Okay. Oh, okay. So I should watch that original series before I watch those series on Netflix because I have those newer series on my list of shows to watch.
Yeah, so I'd say if you could find the old series, Standalone Complex, man, I have that on Blu-ray. That's how much I love it. But
Sweet.
that that is basically my favorite like anime series. And what's great, it's not like gigantic. There are some of these anime series that have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes.
Yeah, like
Um,
uh what the hell was that? Was it I think it was Robotech that I was watching last year maybe?
Robotech doesn't have as many as some series. Like Robotech, I think in total might have, I don't know, 100 if you're talking about all three seasons.
Yeah,
But
true.
but there are freaking shows out there. One Piece is one. I think there's over 1,000
Yeah.
episodes in that series.
Yeah. And
And
what is
then
it? Is it Full Metal
Naruto has a
Alchemist?
shitload too. Well, Metal Alchemist has like, because they made 2 separate series, and I think one of
Right.
them is 2 seasons and the other one is 4 seasons.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not entirely sure how many total episodes that is. But the Ghost in the Shell, there's 2 seasons of the original series. Each season, I believe, is 24 episodes, if I'm not mistaken. Let me
Okay.
just double check on that. It's 24 episodes. I think that's pretty reasonable. That's
Okay.
not
And what
something
was
too
that?
difficult.
What was that one that you were mentioning before I said, before I said Full Metal Alchemist?
One Piece.
No, I think I interrupted you and you were starting to say another one before I said Full Metal Alchemist. Something with this that you started, something that starts with a V.
Naruto maybe.
I'm not sure.
Naruto has a shitload of episodes too.
I've heard of that one. That's one
Pokemon
that
Pokemon
I've,
has a ridiculous number as well. It's like 23
yeah,
seasons.
I'm sure. I bet you said it has 3 seasons?
23.
23. Oh, yeah, yeah. I definitely have not seen all the Pokemon episodes because I used to watch it a lot when I was a kid, back when I was really into the original Pokemon games on Game Boy and Game Boy Pocket or whatever the Game Boy was at the time. But
Hmm.
then I kind of grew out of Pokemon when I was a teenager or so. So I haven't seen I bet I haven't seen episodes in at least a decade, if not 2 decades. So probably haven't seen
Well,
most of them.
I'll say this. I have my daughter started on Pokemon, and now she's on season 3.
Nice.
So she
Yeah,
watches an episode every morning before school. Well, I have her watch one.
nice. That's a
So
good
for
children's anime to get into.
Yeah, she loves it. You know, she likes all the cute characters and all that. So here's what I'll say about Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. It appears all of the episodes are available on Dailymotion.
Oh, okay.
Dailymotion is another one of those sites that doesn't have a bunch of like porn spam, but they also have like old shows and stuff.
Okay. I'm gonna bookmark that page right now.
So yeah, Dailymotion has Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. I see episode 1 here, so I looked and it looks like they have a bunch of like the rest of the episodes too.
Sweet.
So there's like 2 seasons of standalone. Well, 2 seasons of the old, and then there's 2 seasons of the reboot, which is on Netflix. And the reboot, I believe, is all 3D animation with that cell shaded look.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember seeing an ad for that. So you said it's a reboot. Is it a reboot or is it a
Oh no, no, no!
continuation
I'm
of the
sorry.
series or it is
It's
kind of
not a
both?
reboot. It is a direct continuation.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I'm sorry. I know I said a reboot, but no, it's not a reboot. It's the
Okay.
same characters and the storyline has progressed. I think it's like a 10 years or something between 5 or 10 years between the last season and the old animated one and the new season in this 3D one.
Okay.
But yeah, it does look like they have all these episodes for on Dailymotion. Also, that's where I find a lot of my Pokemon episodes too.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's 26 episodes a season. So that's how many episodes they have. So that's about 52 episodes for those 2 seasons.
Okay.
But yeah, I highly fucking recommend it. It's like super intelligent, really smart. It's like one of those things like you watch it and you're like, oh. I had to watch some episodes a couple times in order for me to get exactly what was going on because some of the plots can be really complex. You know how the first movie is? Like the
Yeah,
first time I
yeah,
watched the first movie, I didn't really get the ending that much.
yeah. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie. But there's you know how there's a lot of they have like the villains are kind of like the villain in the movie where there's like this exposition that's really smart exposition. Like the villains are always like super highly intelligent.
Right.
But yeah, I highly recommend that. I think you would really like it.
Sweet.
So yeah, I guess we could start wrapping up. I have about an hour or so left here, 2 hours left
I'm
before I
glad
go
I
to
could just
work.
barely make it in time for us to do this.
Yeah, yeah. Did you want to talk quickly about some of the things you read recently?
Yeah, let me open my Goodreads here so I can go through all of them easily. I know one that we were talking about was I've been reading the first Malazan book, which you recently did a review of, and
Right.
yeah, I'm liking it a lot. I'm liking it more than I think I'm about 400 pages into it, so I have
Oh, you're almost
less
done
than
then.
half. Yeah, and
Because it's not that long of a book, if I'm not mistaken.
the one I have is about 700.
Okay, so you're reading like a
Yeah.
trade paperback or like a mass market paperback?
It's the same. I think it's this mass market. It's the same one that you have the picture of in the thumbnail of your video for that's your review of it.
Okay, because I know my Kindle version was like 400 something pages, so um, like the mass market ones always have like less words per page.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, so I think I told you I've been rereading the Harry Potter books, listening to all of them as audiobooks because
Oh,
they're all
cool.
available on a free um audiobook channel that's available that's just called audiobooks on the Podbean app that I use to listen to the Legendarium podcast and the Crystal Kyle and Friends podcast.
Uh,
And so all the Harry Potter audiobooks are available on there. So I reread all of them recently, and I've been watching the movies at the same time, which is cool because I hadn't seen all the movies. And I also read Harry Potter and the Cursed Child for the first time because I hadn't read that one before.
uh,
Um, and yeah, I mean the all the original ones that I read before, they still really hold up. They're still really good books, I think. Like especially when Snape kills Dumbledore in Half-Blood Prince, it brings tears to my eyes. When Dobby gets killed by Bellatrix Lestrange, it brings tears to my eyes. I just watched the Deathly Hallows movie part 1 the other day, and that brought tears to my eyes more so than Dobby dying in the book because it was so visual and he's such a cute little guy.
yeah, Dobby took it. One for the team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So yeah,
teared
I
up in
haven't
the movie.
have you read The Cursed Child?
I have not read The Cursed Child yet.
Okay. I think it's I know a lot of people hated it. I think it's pretty good, but it's probably my least favorite Harry Potter book.
It's pretty good, but your least favorite. Okay.
Yeah. It's actually originally based on a play that someone made. So it wasn't actually even originally a book. It got made into a book based on the play.
Hmm. And the play was not written by J.K. Rowling.
It was the book was co-written by J.K. Rowling, but I don't think the play was written by her.
Okay.
So it's kind of a novelization of the play, I think.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm
Yeah.
glad you're able to get through it because I did kind of the same thing last year where I was reading the book, and then after I finished the book, I'd watch the movie and then get to the next book. But I took that
That's
exact same path.
yeah, that's basically what I've been doing, reading the book and then watching the movie based on that book at the like reading the book at the start of the week and then watching the movie based on that book at the end of the week, a day or two before I read the next book.
Right. Yeah, I did something
Yeah.
similar. And I thought the differences were interesting.
So just to go through the more interesting recent ones that I read, I think I told you guys in our movie chats group, I read the Philip K. Dick short stories of We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which is the one on which Total Recall is based. And I also read the short story of Minority Report, which I both thought were pretty good. I think I'm probably going to do a video about a comparison between the Minority Report books and movies, because those ones are far more different, I think, than the Total Recall book and movie. And they kind of expanded on a lot of stuff in the movie that I think added some layers of complexity and detail that actually make it better. So that's
So when you say Total Recall, did you watch both of the movies?
Yeah, I did watch that newer remake one with Colin Farrell like a few years ago. That one's terrible, especially in comparison to the Arnold one.
I haven't seen it.
Dude, they don't even
go
go to Mars.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, that's whack.
Yeah.
I have to get around to watching that someday.
Yeah. It's worth watching just to have watched it, but yeah, the Arnold one is definitely way better.
Okay.
And I've been reading the Chronicles of Narnia books too. I had never read all of them before. I think I read maybe one of them, but not all of them. And yeah, they're pretty good. Those ones, I'm not a huge fan of them, but I'm just reading them to have read them, really. They're kind of worth reading, but they're way more hardcore YA than something like Harry Potter.
Yeah. To be honest, they weren't my cup of tea. I did get through them, but yeah, they're not quite my cup of tea.
Okay. Yeah, I also read a really deep hardcore philosophical book called An Introduction to Metaphysics by Henri Bergson, who I heard about from our friend Tim Keefe, aka Chief Keefe, who I got a lot of philosophy author and book recommendations from, and it's just as complex as you would expect it to be. But I wanted to read it because he had some major influences on some major philosophers, like I think maybe Heidegger and Hegel, if I remember correctly. So that was pretty interesting. And I told you in Tristram, I've also been reading up on the 12-volume History of Middle-earth published posthumously by Christopher Tolkien after J.R.R. Tolkien's death. So that
there's 12 volumes? Oh,
yeah, so like the Silmarillion, it's basically like reading 12 Silmarillions. Very, very boring big history books in some ways, but worth reading just because I want to learn more about Middle-earth lore.
Wow, that's quite a bit there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if I'll probably get to those eventually, I think.
And I finished reading all of the books in the George Smiley series by John le Carré.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. One of the things I have to finish too.
Yeah, I think there are 9 of those in total, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are a few of them that are really good. The second last one I read, called The Secret Pilgrim, was really interesting because it's different from the other George Smiley books in that it's mostly from the perspective of a different character after Smiley has finally retired, and there actually are some things that are not in the other books, like there's nudity and swearing and prostitution and all kinds of like not PG-13 stuff, which is mostly what's in a lot of the other George Smiley books.
Okay, I think it's just because George Smiley was a very PG-13 type of character.
Yes.
And it's from his POV, so what do you expect?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess the only other, oh yeah, I read a book called Agent Josephine, American Beauty, French Hero, British Spy, which is a nonfiction book based on the real Ancient Josephine, who I had never heard of before. So she was an American actress and singer, and
Josephine Baker?
sorry,
Josephine
yeah, I think
Baker?
so. Yeah, you've heard of
Yeah,
her
there's a
before?
movie about her. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And so she was an American actress in France when Nazis took it over during World War II, and she became a spy for the British, and it's all about that
Mhm.
story, which is pretty interesting, I would say.
Yeah, she was like a jazz singer, I think, too.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's like a performer.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
oh, I also read Notes from the Underground by Dostoevsky, which is my favorite one of his books so far because I think we talked a long time ago about how we both tried reading Crime and Punishment but found it to be boring.
I thought it
And
was okay. Like, um, I think yeah, it wasn't too exciting. I just thought it was, this is okay, I guess. But yeah, it's super heady. So you found another book, but it was better?
yeah, this one called Notes from the Underground is kind of about a guy who thinks that he's starting to go crazy, but he's not sure whether he is or not, and he thinks he might be starting to discover the existence of this secret underground world that is separate from society, and he's a very philosophical and introspective character. So it kind of combines this like psychological thriller aspect with the like cerebral kind of detective like character, and he doesn't know what's real and what's dreams. So that one was much more interesting than I expected because I didn't really like Crime and Punishment, even though it's such a famous book.
Mm. Yeah, I thought Crime and Punishment, I was like, it's not horrible, but ain't great. It's just kind of in the middle there for me.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought it was just kind of slow moving. I
Yeah, I think when I
also
read it, I was reading it along like a study guide with it.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good idea.
So that helped me like kind of stay interested in
Yeah. So I hadn't read any Agatha Christie books before, so I read the first one in her series called the Tommy and Tuppence series called The Secret Adversary. I thought it was pretty much what I expected, pretty much formulaic murder mystery, worth reading but not amazing or anything like that.
it. Just to get the experience of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last one of note that I read recently was I read a nonfiction book about Crazy Horse and Custer, which and of course the them as characters and all of the events from both of their perspectives leading up to the Battle of Little Bighorn, which I had heard of before because it's a famous event in history and they're famous historical people, but I had never really looked into it thoroughly or read a book about it before. So that one was really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, that's basically all that I've read of note that were really good or significant books that I've read lately.
Okay. Well, let's see. What have I've read? Well, read quite a lot since we last talked, but let's touch on a couple. I read a few books that were from required reading from elementary school.
Oh,
Um,
like ones your daughter has to read?
no, these are ones that I had to read when I was a freaking child,
Oh,
elementary
okay.
school.
Some of those are pretty good, like To Kill a Mockingbird and um I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of that one, but that one where the boys get stuck on an island and that kid has the conch
Yeah,
shell.
talking about Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, Lord of the Flies. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I revisited two books. One's called Zia, and the other's called The Black Pearl. These are actually from
Okay.
the same author, Scott Odell.
Okay.
Zia is the sequel to Island of the Blue Dolphins. I don't know if you ever had to read that.
Oh, no,
And
I haven't. I saw that you had Zia in our audio book folder though, but hadn't heard of it before, so I didn't bother reading it.
yeah, it's below like a third grade book. And then the Black Pearl, also, and these are interesting to me because they're um, one of them is based in California. These are kind of like historical fiction type of books.
Okay.
Um, Covering like Indian tribes and stuff like that. So I read those. I've really gotten into this series called The Ranger's Apprentice, which
Oh
is
yeah, I
a
watched your video about the first book in that.
yeah, so it's a YA series. I just finished the fourth book and I gave it 5 stars.
Oh,
I thought it
nice.
was
How many
pretty.
are there?
There's a ton. I know there's like 12 or something like that. They're pretty
Okay.
short though. They're not super long books. When I get the
Okay.
chance, I'll upload those too. But yeah, they're like right now. I think the current book that I'm reading now, I don't think it's as good as the first four. So it looks like there might be a dip in quality here. I think it has something to do because there's a time jump that happens, and it's like 5 years since the last book. But anyway, um, Dawn Shard, which is I guess a short story that's in Cosmere Universe on Roshar. Thought that was really good. Um, but yeah, the Gardens in the Moon. Finished that. Great, really good book. I did a spoiler-free review on that one, and I plan to do another review tomorrow on one of the Ranger's Apprentice books.
Okay. Oh, I haven't
Um,
read
I-
that I haven't read that Dawn Shard book, but I've heard of it before and I definitely would like to read it, especially since it's in the Cosmere and those people on that super nerdy Brandon Cosmere channel called the 17th Shard have mentioned it a bunch of times. And also,
yeah,
by the way, I would totally do book chats with you about the Malisand books if you want to. I bet Tristram would like that too.
as he's read them too, right? Well, we can
Yeah,
ask him if he's interested in that.
yeah,
Yeah, because I would be totally game for that. And I'm still gonna do like my shortish like reviews too, which is like a separate thing. So
yeah.
I'm
It's a
trying
good
to get in
idea.
the habit of reviewing every fucking thing I read. You know, that's gonna provide some content. I just need to like actually do it.
Yeah, for sure. I've gotten into the habit of doing basically doing long deep dive series on a bunch of different philosophy books. I'm doing 5 different ones right now. I'm doing Foucault's History of Sexuality, Cynical Theories, Jordan Peterson's Beyond Order, uh, Derek Bell's Silent Covenants, and then Slavoj Žižek's Less Than Nothing. And
Yeah.
I haven't been talking as much about novels, but sometimes I'll do a review. Like I think the last one I did was on that George R. R. Martin vampire book called Fever Dream, which I thought was really
Right.
interesting. And like I said, I'm probably going to do a book versus movie comparison of Minority Report.
Mm.
So yeah. And yeah, it's good for us to talk about books more because we both read so many of them.
Yeah. Especially like the good ones, like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Malazan, and that's definitely I'd be up for a good discussion on. And then I need to get back into the finishing this goddamn Wheel of Time book. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. And also like as usual, give me a week or two of notice before you want to do the chat on we're going to start the next one, right?
yeah, but I haven't even started like I ended the first part. I still got some reading to do.
Okay. Which book is it now?
It's book 10.
So we got, including that one, 5 more.
Yeah, so let me see, book 10 in a little time. What is its name? Crossroads of Twilight.
Right. Okay. I think you might have put that on the audiobook file.
Yeah, that might be there.
Yeah.
It might be there. I know for sure it's on my phone, but I need to get all. I have so many books I need to upload that I haven't uploaded.
Right.
Like all of these Rangers Apprentice books, and all the other stuff I've been listening to. But I've actually been listening to a lot of Audible stuff. So, but the Audible stuff is not stuff I can upload.
Right.
This sucks, man. The Malazan, their audiobooks are exclusive. Like you can't get them in libraries. All the audiobooks are Audible only.
Yeah, it looks like I think I told you this, but maybe you didn't see that it looks like I can get all or most of them in ebook form on that archive.org website where you can get lots of ebooks for free.
Well, I can get all of the ebooks from the library, just not the audiobooks. So if you want like Amazon format ebooks, I can give you those. But that would require you to whatever device you're using, you have to make sure the internet's shut off on it.
Yeah. No, I don't need to do that anyway because I can get the ebooks from that website.
Right. So yeah, that's about it pretty much. The nonfiction, David Sedaris books. Listened to like some Audible exclusive that's called from the Great Courses, called The Science of Sci-Fi from Warp
Oh,
Speed to
nice.
Interstellar Travel. So it's basically like a scientist analyzing like various sci-fi properties, telling you how relatable it is to real science. Um, and a couple political books here and there. I think I did a Bernie Sanders book and woke racism. Read that, but yeah, I also went back over Fire and Blood.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I went back over what the show is covering. I was like,
Okay.
oh, this is really interesting because in certain inflection points in the book, there are multiple accounts that differ. So what's interesting about the show is like they're playing a choose your own adventure as to which account is the true account. And in some
Oh,
cases,
right.
they're making up accounts.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yes. So I thought it was
I
pretty
forgot that about the
interesting.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know one of the accounts that they made up was when the prince he got shipped off with his lover.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah,
That
that
was
guy.
made up for the
Yeah.
show.
Oh, okay. I know they made up a lot of stuff because they really extended the story with these characters more than the length of time it takes up in the book, right?
Oh yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. There's definitely, there's not a whole bunch of dialogue between characters in this book. It's
Yeah,
basically overview of historical inflection points in events, but as far as characters talking to each other, there's not a lot of that at
right.
all. So it's interesting how they're able to do that for the show. But yeah, I can't wait till we finally talk about that, and then we have to talk to Tristram about the season wrap up for Rings of Power as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I want
So
to
yeah,
we still have to do that House of Dragon wrap up with Chris first. And I also I wanted to talk about Children of Dune with Parker soon also because it's been far too long since we've talked about the Dune or the Dark Tower books with him. And I also wanted to talk about another war movie in belated honor to Remembrance Day. So I was thinking it would be fun to talk about 300.
300, yeah, that'd be a pretty nice thing to talk about.
Yeah.
300, the Battle of Thermopylae.
Yes. And shredded Spartans slaughtering Persians.
Yeah, Persians that are like 10 feet tall
Yep.
and wear excessive facial piercings.
Yes. Lots of jewelry.
And it has a throne or that's driven by slaves, I guess.
Yeah, carried by slaves.
Carried by
Giant stone
slaves.
throne carried by slaves.
It's just so ridiculous. But yeah, I'd be totally down to watch that again.
Sweet. Yeah, I've seen it many, many times, and I'll probably watch it many, many more times.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention media that I'm watching. So I'm going back through the extended editions of Lord of the Rings.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
you mentioned that. Awesome.
I I finished the second movie. I forgot how goddamn long. I haven't been able to. I'm not watching these things in one sitting. They're just so long.
Oh
It's
yeah. I've
it's
been
so
I've been rewatching those too. I watched the first one, and because I'm watching the Blu-rays, the movie is separated. Each movie is separated into two separate discs anyway, so that's convenient because it's like two movies.
right. I've also been watching Godzilla movies, starting from the
Oh,
first
nice.
movie.
Oh, that's a good idea. I should do that too. I
Yeah, because
like the
HBO Max has all the Godzilla movies on it.
oh, dude, I should see if they're on the Crave app that I have because I think it's a Canadian app that gets a lot of stuff from HBO and HBO Max. That's how I've been able to watch House of the Dragon without watching it on that streaming site.
Yeah, the
And
only advice I would give you is you can skip one movie, and I'll tell you
yeah,
why. The first movie and the third movie. You can
okay,
skip one of those two. So the first movie, all the third movie is basically like the international US release. And what they did was they added, well, one, there's English voiceover that's dubbed, and then they added scenes, and the scenes that they added are this like um, reporter, like white dude, and he has like a lot of narrations and voiceover. So basically, like that release is like, oh, an American reporter goes to Japan and he kind of reports on the whole Godzilla disaster, as
okay,
opposed to the first one where it's just a movie from the perspective of like Japanese people. So
right, right.
yeah. So you could either watch one or the other. I wouldn't recommend watching both. Like I started watching three, not knowing that that's what they did. I was like, oh, this is just the first movie with like added scenes of this dude standing around, like
It sounds
reporting on
like
what Godzilla's doing.
it sounds like the first one is maybe better, especially since I find usually with foreign films the dubbing tends to be really bad.
Yeah, I would recommend the first movie. I didn't even finish the third movie. I was like, what's the point? I already know like the whole plot. It's just they're adding this third character in these extra scenes to make it look like he's there at these different scenes in the movie. So they reshot a bunch of scenes and they hired like American Japanese people to pretend that they're in Japan. So that's pretty interesting. But yeah, I've been going through all the Godzilla movies and because I had never like sat down and watched any of them. Like none of them.
Okay.
Not even the
I
modern
haven't
ones.
I used to watch I used to watch a lot of them when I was a kid because we would rent movies at this thing called a video store every week, and I got into the habit of watching Godzilla movies for a while. So I watched a lot of the older ones, and I recently watched the newer ones too. I think my favorite one that I watched recently anyway was Godzilla King of the Monsters, which is the one that comes out before Godzilla versus Kong, because I think there are actually better fights in there. Like there's basically a fight between There are two fights between Godzilla and a giant alien three-headed dragon. So those are
Ghidorah?
like the highlights. So yeah, definitely awesome.
But isn't
And
Ghidorah like the three-headed dragon?
yeah, I think that's its name. Yeah,
Okay. Because I've
yeah.
only watched the first four, and then the first three are in black and white.
Okay.
And I
I
think the third
watched.
movie is actually called Godzilla King of Monsters as well.
Oh, okay. The original third one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I also I also recently started basically rewatching all the movies in the MCU, and I'm gonna watch them basically in chronological order this time. So I watched the first Iron Man movie, but I decided after I watched that, I'm also gonna watch Marvel movies that are not officially in the MCU because I like the original, at least the first two original Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire more than any of the other newer Spider-Man movies. And I kind of like those original Hulk, well, those original semi-original Hulk movies with Eric Bana in 2004 or so, and the one after that with Edward Norton. And those are not in the
Mhm.
MCU either.
Oh yeah, yeah. I completely forgot about
And
those.
all the X-Men movies too, because
Yep,
none of
none of
them are
those
in
are
the
in
MCU,
MCU.
but I like a lot of those ones too. I don't really like the prequels that much, but I like the other regular X-Men movies for the most part.
You should try finding the original Captain America movie and seeing if you can watch it.
Oh, it's like a lame 90s one or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like mid early 90s.
Okay.
It's yeah, you'll see it. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but
Is it
I
so
haven't.
cheesy that it's funny?
Uh, I think so. I
Okay.
watched it when I was young, so I don't know
Oh,
how watching it recently how that would go.
okay.
But yeah, all right, great, 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 great. All right, so I guess we could go ahead and wrap things up here. How long
Yep.
were we streaming? Almost 2 hours. Almost 2 hours.
Not bad.
All right, so go ahead and go ahead with your plugs, man.
Yeah, like we were discussing before, people should check out my channel. Just the other day, I did the latest one of my series on the quote unquote evil critical race theorist Derek Bell's book called Silent Covenants, about him talking about how slavery is a racial sacrifice that harmed lower class white people. Uh, Along with just black people, because rich white slave owners convinced lower class white people that it would be in their own interest to condone slavery out of racism, even though they themselves didn't actually benefit from slavery because they couldn't afford to own slaves. So check that out and my other videos in those series. And like I mentioned before, too, hopefully either tomorrow or next week, Dusty and Chris and I will talk about the last four episodes and do also kind of a season review of House of the Dragon. And if not that, next weekend we'll talk about Children of Dune, the third book in the original Dune series by Frank Herbert, with our friend Parker, who we've been talking about the books in the Dune and Dark Tower series with. And yeah, like I was mentioning earlier, I think probably this upcoming week I'm going to try to make that video comparing the Minority Report book and movie as well. So yeah, check out all that on my channel, which is Mindgasms.
All right, great, great. Yes, and stay tuned to my channel as well. We'll all be posting quick spoiler-free reviews. And I might start chopping these reviews up in a spoiler-free half and a spoiler-filled half. Depends on how
Yeah,
I feel.
that's what a lot of people that's what a lot of booktubers seem to do. Start off with a
Yeah.
spoiler-free section and then get into spoilers. I and we most of the time when we're doing group chats at least tend to just go full spoilers for the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a little bit of both because I sometimes like spoiler-free reviews when it's something I'm interested in that I haven't, I'm just talking about my
Yeah.
personal experience.
I liked that
But
about your Malazan review because then I could watch it before I finished reading the book.
yeah, and that one there's like no plot stuff whatsoever. I didn't even name any of the characters. So, but I did give a pretty good overview of like the feel of the book and the writing style and how he works on that. But yeah, just like and subscribe. Check us out on Mindgasms and on the Luke Centrist. So we'll be have some more content possibly tomorrow, possibly next week, well within a week for sure. But yeah, check us out, and you guys have a great night.
Ta-ta, bitches.
Yes, toodaloo, motherfuckers.